Greetings, Earth.
Greetings.
All right, so last month, a lot went on, a lot of change. Good change or not so good change?
We might as well call it good because you're not going to change.
Gwendolyn says, you may as well call it good because you're not going to change the change. And that's true. You may as well call it good. Good change? Not so good change? Then here is what I want you to think about, because it goes with what I'm talking about tonight. I want you to think about the changes that you've experienced in your life, not only last month, but let's say over the last few months. The changes. And those are changes that you would consider good ones and changes you might not consider good ones. But think about those changes. Are you thinking? Think. I don't see the smoke rising out of the tops of your heads yet.
But we've been out in the rain.
Ah, so it's damped down, is that it? Now, as you think about those changes, I'd like for you, particularly those of you who are writing things down, because it'll be a little easier for you, I want you to think about those changes and ask yourself, what did I overcome? Now, there's not a single answer. You want a really big picture, then you're going too big. I'm wanting you to look, what did I overcome? Because change is always about overcoming something. Stuart, sounds brittle. Good luck with that. That wasn't a very good explanation. Too crisp, make it muddy. All right, so what have you overcome? And if you can let yourself think of 2 or 3 or even more things that you made a change with in your life, or in which life brought change to you, what did you overcome in that situation? Thinking. Good. Keep thinking. What did I overcome? And then a second question. What strength, that's a tough word for me, strength, is it showing you? What have you overcome, and what strength is that showing you? Now, for those of you who can think very, very well in your head or who have written it down, the third question. Do you see a pattern of either what you might need or what you are currently receiving, what you might need to receive because they were changes that aren't supporting you in a way you would really want it to, or it is a very supportive change and a strength, and you see that you are receiving some things that you're needing. Now, with those questions, welcome to May, a life-changing month. And my job is to remind you that you have what you need. You are capable. You've done it before. You can do it again. And more change is coming. So for those who are seeing change in a positive focus, what have you gained from those changes? Colleen, you still want to be an answer to that? All right.
Changes were very recently and physical. They're not all the other things of the last 3 years or so ago. They're simple things that I just couldn't believe bothered me so much. Like, I've always thought that my toes are ugly and nobody would think like, ooh. So I have never worn open-toed shoes unless there was something on my foot like a stocking. But never flip-flops, never all those other sandals that are so pretty. And I, along with Kathy Farney and Kathy Adams, they were very supportive, and I had my first pedicure ever. And I just had a vision that that person would probably think, oh, these are disgusting. I mean, really, because I would never go. I just couldn't imagine to even do such a thing. I mean, I've always put makeup on my face, put my clothes together, but never my feet. And I went and
Is there such a thing?
What?
Makeup for your feet?
No, but there's nail polish and there's, other things. And even when I tried things, I just didn't want anybody to see them. So I went with them. And I didn't think the woman looked disgusted or anything. Actually, they said, well, she's probably seen it all. And then there was a gentleman across the way, the only man there, who was older than me. And he was taking off his shoes to his bare feet and letting somebody do his nails. I was like, wow, if he can do that.
So what did you gain from that?
Well, I certainly...
You overcame
my disgust with my own toes.
disgust. Ooh.
My own toes. And I feel better about my feet. And I want to show everybody my feet.
So afterwards, the line can form in the back of the room and everyone can have a look at Colleen's beautiful feet. I'm going to play with that just a little bit, all right? I'm going to call that body image. And gaining weight and losing weight and eating well and exercising regularly are all related to fear. Samael, are you saying that eating well means I'm afraid? No, you're eating well to keep you from being afraid. What kind of fear is body image often related to? I'll give you a hint. It's a very basic, easy, simple fear that most all fears can break down to. Of not being enough. Of not being enough, not only in the eyes of others, but in your own eyes. And therefore, the response is, as Colin was expressing, to ignore it, put it aside, hide it, not look at it, or do something. Take a step and do something. And the interesting thing about taking a step to do something is that one step makes the next one easier. Are you set up for another one yet?
Oh, I don't have the appointment, but yes, I'm going to have another one.
Exactly so. And that leads to another, and that leads to another. And I don't mean toenail, pedicure, right? I mean taking a step, and taking a step, and taking a step. Do you remember when you made a dietary change? And if you made a rather big dietary change, I'm taking processed sugar out of my diet, or I'm going to stop eating dairy, or you probably found that you didn't feel real good for a while, didn't you? Just when you think, oh, I'm going to change my diet, I'm going to feel great, instead, your body is processing out all of the unpleasant that it's been dealing with, and you're left feeling, gosh, did I make the right decision? Maybe an easier one for you to think about is, as careful as you're being when you finally started exercising again, the next day you were sore. You remember that? So maybe that's a little easier for you to think about. It puts a choice in front of you. Am I going to stop because I don't ever want to feel this again as long as I live? Or am I going to keep going? Frank's been taking pictures. So I thought I'd smile for him. You can choose. I'm never going to do it again because I had this difficulty. And obviously, it means I should never do it again. And a lot of people live their whole life that way. I had a bad experience once. I'll never do it again. You laugh. But you work with people who do exactly that. You counsel them. I don't mean you work with. Sorry.
That's okay.
So when you meet challenges in your life, what's one of the best things you can do to be successful with that challenge? Now, everybody's going to have a different answer for that. And I'm going to ask you for those answers because what works for you might be something that the next person never thought of. It might be something everybody's thought of. But first, I want to tell you something that would be very, very useful as your first thing to do. When you find that you have a challenge in front of you, be it cosmic energy raining down like madness, creating a very interesting summer for you, or you have a flat tire and no money to fix it, or it doesn't matter. the first thing that you want to do is recognize you are capable of dealing with it. And the way you want to do that is remember how you've managed similar things. Well, the last time this happened, by the way, that's never a good sign, just in case you wondered. Well, the last time this happened, I did this and everything worked out. Or, well, this reminds me of that time, and here is what I did. Remind yourself of your successes and your strengths. Your successes and your strengths in similar situations. You try that. Say it quickly. My successes and strengths in similar situations. So look at the changes that have come to you that you've written down or that you're remembering, and ask yourself, what are my strengths that my successes are showing me I have available here for this? Ask yourself, if it helps in a different direction, what have I learned? How have I grown through these changes in my life? And then ask, because sometimes it helps to prime the pump, then ask, what can I consider a success out of this? As often as I have said this, that often I am surprised by how easy it is for you to forget to look at your past success when dealing with what is in front of you. When it's something you feel really confident about, it's because of your past successes. So you don't think of it too much. But when it's something you're not confident about, consciously going to those successes is going to make a very good and very important difference for you. Simple, 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 but powerful. You're coming into a few months of change, and the change has to do with I'll just say it all. It has to do with clarity on your journey by way of letting go, releasing that which isn't helpful in your life. That which is not helpful. Not that it's bad, it's just not helpful. How much of your life is centered on habit, doing the same things that work for you? I'll be the first to tell you, personal ritual is a good thing. But not when it has become a rut. Especially if that rut is based on your lack of confidence in your ability to manage everything that is in front of you. Change brings fear or passion. Although I could say there is such a thing as passionate fear, isn't there? When you're really horrified about something. So what are you passionate about right now? Avoiding fear.
Well, part of what I saw that was a success in the last few months, a change, and what I'm passionate about is that I've gone back to what initially got me interested in having a career in art. And that was, initially I wanted to illustrate, but I got really sidetracked into design. And I did that for almost 36 years. So now...
Because you began when you were 3.
Just about, yeah. But anyway, I'm now returning to the illustration, and it's what I am passionate about, and it is what feeds me. And what I found in it was some of what you've talked about with the resistance. I was thinking, if I go down this path, I have so much work to do with it because I'm going to be changing the whole way I'm working right now. I'm going to have to do a whole lot more training with some things that I'm doing.
Oh no.
At first it wasn't something that I wanted to run away from. It was something I was trying to figure out how it's going to fit it in with my life. And so I've just realized that I'm doing exactly what I did when I was training to become a designer, and that was step by step by step by step, doing the training, learning the systems, putting everything in place that would be of help to me for that. And now, the struggle has been to let go of the design because it has been such a part of me, and I see it as my way of making my living.
Sure.
So I'm now switching and saying, don't put that pressure on you for this, which is something that really nourishes you. Don't put the pressure on about having it be what makes your living for you, even though my goals down the road are to do just that.
Aye.
But I'm not going to divert myself into that too quickly to where I kill off the very path, to it.
2 things. One of them is don't fear what is ahead of you so much that you make sure you're not moving forward because you're afraid of what is ahead of you. But right along with that is don't start going in a different direction until the road you're on is fully closed off. Don't stop where you're going until you know where you're going to. Don't take away your whole income until you have something fulfilling it. But the whole point of both of those is don't stop. And that's what Lilibeth was saying. Baby steps, but constant forward movement. That makes a difference. So more, what do you do when faced with a challenge? What's the first thing you do?
Try to overcome it.
Try to overcome it.
I see challenge as a way of thinking through something and making it work for you.
All right, that's getting more specific. I'm going to go with that. Gwendolyn stops and thinks things through and looks to see how she can make it work for her. And that's important. I like that better, actually, than try to overcome it. Because that's part of the fight or flight mentality. I've got to fight this. And when you're doing that, you're simply drawing more of it to you because your fear is putting out a negative energy charge, drawing further negative energy charges. Mary Claire.
I'm always look back in this part of my life because it was filled with challenges. It was really overwhelming, actually. But when my father had stage 4 cancer, and I was living in my husband and I were living in a hotel because our house was gutted from insurance claim, and I always look back on that because it helps me with any kind of challenge or change that comes up, and that is look right now in this moment to see
Good.
what I can do right now. And then
Good.
make a list of what I can do.
Yes.
Next, an hour after that, and an hour after that, and make a call, whatever it is, and get through step by step that day, in the moment, step by step. But then say, okay, what can I do tomorrow?
Lovely.
But mark those things off my list to see myself digging myself out of a hole of fear, to see, yes, you are. You're doing this. You're moving. And looking, this was the most important thing in that process, was looking for a gift every single step that I took and saying, okay, there's a gift in this for me. I know. It's like the child with the pony. There's a pony in here somewhere. And saying, yes, I didn't have to make my bed this morning because someone's going to come in and clean the room and make my bed. I can get in the car and go see my father and spend wonderful time with him.
Lovely.
And the gifts really pulled me out of that fear place, saying, yes, the universe is here, it's helping me, it's working, and it's gonna be fine.
Lovely. There is a lot wrapped up in that one. So think that one through. Frank, David, and Annie. Lovely. And then Steve Vaughan.
I'm remembering when I was young, challenges were exciting. I mean, someone would challenge me to do something. And it would be something I would look forward to prove I could do it. And I'm seeing how interesting it is that now we look at challenges as
Scary.
scary. I mean, it was really exciting. Oh boy, I wonder if I can do this. Can I do this? What am I going to have to learn so I can do it? And it was proving myself and what I could do. And maybe I've had failures and that enough that I'm afraid I can't do it now. But I want to remember to tap into that excitement and challenge that youth has, or when you're starting a new project that you're starting, and challenge yourself to see how much better you can be at it. It's interesting perspective change.
So if you're faced with something that you're not confident about, you can ask yourself, what can I do to make this better? What can I do to be better with this? That's good. Good. Was David next?
Yes. Well, what I do, and it's brought me a lot of success, is I grumble, then I curse my lot in life, and then I look and say, do I really have to do this? And if I don't, and I really don't want to, then I try and see if I don't have to. But if I do, then I start talking to myself, well, do I want to drag this out for months and hate it for months, or do I want to just do it and be done with it? So I work on, usually it ends up being, well, duh, just do it, get done with it. And then usually I find some level of fun in it once I get started. And I usually motivate myself with micro lists. Because I don't want to do it, I need to see successes. So I'll put every simple little thing on my list, like get up, sit at computer. And that gets me going, and I see the successes, and I get it done quicker. Yeah, but I do have to go through that process of grumbling and mumbling, or at least I shouldn't say I don't, I have to go through it. I usually do go through it.
That's called life as a human. And remember that when you know your process, when you are onto you and you realize, I am going to grumble about this to start with, but then I'm going to create a plan and look at my successes and make it happen bit by bit. If you know that that's your routine, then don't let the grumble mumble scare you off. I'm hitting on that a lot, how you scare yourself off of things. Instead, you have the next step, that system. Here is where I'll go. Here is what I'll do. Good. After David, yes.
Hi. By the way, anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Kay Waddle's granddaughter. But there's something someone told me once that kind of synthesizes what everyone else is saying, which I've had a really, really difficult struggle with depression and anxiety for about 5 years now. And those are two things that kind of make it hard for you to even accept that there is a challenge that can be overcome. It works with your mind. But something I was told that sticks in my head every time is stop, breathe, reflect, choose.
Good. Yes.
It's just short and simple. Because
Stop
usually
breathing.
Just stop, give yourself a second to accept that it's not as big as you think it is. It's one of my biggest reminders to myself is be gentle with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
A beautiful quote that I have memorized that just resonates. So.
Lovely. Very lovely.
I grew up working on farms as a teenager and would often be hoeing tobacco rows that were probably a quarter of a mile long. And that's all day long in the hot sun. And so I learned to take it one plant at a time, one hoe chop at a time, and just to keep going. And so somewhere along the way, my motto became, I'll never give up. And I said that to myself 1,000,000 times. Probably more in the last 10 years than the previous 50. But so when there's a really big challenge, like a major physical injury or something, I sort of numb out for a day or two. There's so much emotion attached, whether it's anger or fear or impatience or fury. And I just let myself settle, let the emotions settle. And then I move into doing what you said, which is remembering I've been here before, something similar. I've been in tough situations before. And I'll usually write down the people I need to contact, the steps I need to take,
Good.
and then do it in chunks.
Yes.
Do it in pieces so that it's not so overwhelming. So I want to hold the end goal in mind, but I don't keep looking there because I'll get impatient if I do that. I just keep moving forward one step at a time.
Good. And Stephen's brought up a very important thing. The big picture is good. It's lovely. It's important. When you know that you're going to Colorado, it keeps you from going to Maine because you're going to be going in the direction you need to be going that way. But it's going to be a journey that's long and hard and full of treachery unless you're really just going to Owensboro first. And then once you get there, you break that into pieces. It was a kind of common theme running in these suggestions. And I need you to think about that. One very important part is know how you respond to change. And as you know how you respond to change, think about your strengths, the changes you've successfully made, and then look at what's in front of you. Take that deep breath and break it into steps, manageable steps. And now I'm going to add something to that. Make sure that you are in a loving yourself frame of mind when you are looking at your lists or making, this is the next step I'll need, and this is the next step I'll need, and this is the next step I'll need. Because if you are coming from I am weak and incapable, and this is too much, and I'm so tired, and I'm so... It's not going to happen. But if you come from, I am amazing, I have done so much already, I am capable, I can do this because I have taken a first step every day of my life. What is today's first step going to be? And with that, I am shifting, because I want to talk about that step. It was either Quinn or somebody's really hungry.
It was David Grumman.
Quinn says he's ready for that next section. The month of May, particularly this time of month, has a lot of things associated with it spiritually. It's a very magical month in many ways. You have Visok, you have Beltane, you have
My birthday.
Colleen's birthday, give her a pedicure. You have Mother's Day. What else do you have in May? We're not going to talk about Derby, please. I know you're Kentucky, but I think of it as child abuse. So let's have a Hurt the Animals Day, and we're all going to celebrate it. Sorry, soapbox. All right. So you have, what was some of those others? You have Memorial Day, you have graduations, lovely.
May Day, celebration of labor.
The labor version, May Day, yes. School gets out. I'll put graduations with that, but that doesn't have to mean finishing school. It just means finishing that amount of school. Sure.
In the Catholic tradition, May is devoted to the Virgin Mary, and it's really a goddessy month where you make novenas to Mary, and you bring extra flowers to church, and you do all this cool stuff that I didn't do because I was Protestant, but I thought it was really nice.
And that's where I'm going. Not the celebration of religious days, but the focus of goddess feminine power through the month. People, let me change that. Many people in this world are terrified of feminine power, be they male or female. When I am speaking feminine power, I'm not referring to gender. Remember that. I'm referring to a kind of energy. And an energy pattern that you cannot live without, which has been submerged in your societies for a very long time and which is returning. And those such as the Divine Mother and Mary the Mother are representations of that feminine energy. Heightened particularly in August and May, August, transmissions of feminine strengthening frequency are coming in through the grid, awakening the divine feminine. What does that mean? And why did I go through all of that change and don't fear and take it step by step stuff for something as wonderful as an acceleration of feminine energy in your world? Gail.
She said it. Backlash.
Backlash, yes, yes.
Because I spent so much of my life working in masculine energy, I'm really just now getting to know what it's like to work more in feminine energy. It's incredibly powerful, and I have to trust it. So trust has been my watchword.
Very true.
If creation energy doesn't have a focus, it just becomes chaos. And without the consciousness of making changes, then it could be, like chaotic in a not so fun way.
And of course, I seem to be the only person who likes chaos.
When there's any kind of influx of energy, you've got a response. You can
Yes.
either choose to go with it, make the most of it, or you can resist it.
And that's very much my point. This is going to be coming in front of you, and you are going to be looking at yourself over these next few months, particularly May and August, but over these next few months, in a very different light. Feminine energy is power. Do not think otherwise. Yes, it is compassion. Yes, it is intuition. Yes, it is nurturing and loving. But it is power. It is the power to give form to creation energy. The power to give form to it. Now, you often can think of that as giving birth. Creativity. You have an idea in your head, creator, that you put onto the plate or the canvas or the garden, the expression of it. That power is going to require your ability to do one of the hardest things you have to do in your life. And I want you to look back at the times you've already done this, when I tell you what it is, the times you've already done this, and how it has made a difference for you, and and for you to remember that this is a strength. And that thing is forgiveness. It's not just guardians, but it's guardians I am speaking to. You find it easier to forget than to forgive. You know, the expression is forgive and forget. And most of the time you act like you have forgiven because you have the edge of the worst of it is gone. And you're continuing on with a smile like everything is fine, but you've not forgiven. And here is what happens when you have a need to forgive in your life. Separation. Lack of unity. And a loss of faith and trust in yourself. In yourself. When you do not forgive, you stop trusting you. And needless to say, a whole cycle of, well, I don't trust me, so I don't trust anybody who trusts me. Or I don't believe that this person deserves it, which means that you will accept in your head the idea that you don't deserve forgiveness for things either. Because what you think is because you're already feeling it. When you trust yourself, you're more willing to trust others. When you have faith in yourself, you're more willing to have faith in the situations and relationships around you. Forgiveness is not about, I wasn't ever hurt. We'll just consider it as if it never happened. Forgiveness is, I accept. It's not I understand, it's not I agree. It is I accept. Becoming, well, I almost said becoming acceptable. That's not what I mean, though. Coming to a place in your life in which you are capable of accepting how another person is, without having to believe it is a reflection of you. This is my fault, I did something. Or this terrible thing happened because I was not being who I should, or what I should, or where I should. Accept. Accept what happened as something that happens in life. Good, bad, not where I'm going. Step 1 in this micro list is it happened. Step 2 is recognize your strength. Go back to that list. Look at the times you have looked change in the face and mastered it. Or at least did not die on the spot. That's always a first step.
So Samuel, is there, should you do running forgiveness? You know, where forgiveness is constantly, as far as how people, their treatment of you, and you forgive them, and you accept, you accept their, how they treat you, or?
You're accepting what happened because it is what happened. You're not agreeing with it. You're not.
Allowing it to keep happening.
There is a place in which, when you are constantly being treated badly, and you've looked at yourself, what am I doing to bring this about? Let me make myself as strong as possible and as loving as possible, that you stop putting yourself in the path of that oncoming train. But if in your life you find that you are constantly having to forgive, you need to take a look at your life. Because that idea of running forgiveness, which I think you mean as an endless loop of constantly, all right, I forgive, I forgive, I forgive, might be telling you something that needs change within yourself. Don't leave that out, but do recognize that when you run into those occasional situations in which something really unpleasant, and I'm saying that very mildly, knowing some of your lives, when something destructive, when somebody destructive happens in your life, forgive. And the reason you want to forgive is so you can keep going. Because lack of forgiveness stops you. And where you are stopped is where you stop growing. And when you're not growing, you're dead. Walking around and breathing or not, you're dead. Forgiveness is a powerful divine feminine attribute. Powerful. Forgiveness does not require, Susie, I forgive you because I'm such a good person and it's all about me. Because that's what happens in that. It's about forgiving yourself to the point that what others do doesn't become all about you. You are stronger, you trust, you have faith. And you no longer are stopped by the actions, the words, the situation. Forgiveness says, I am enough, but I recognize that life happens to everyone. That person's fall does not have to become mine. And forgiveness is what keeps that from happening. You forgive yourself. I forgive myself for putting myself on the train tracks. You forgive that oncoming train for doing its thing without heed of your sensitive emotions. And you forgave Source. Samuel, why do you forgive Source? Because you are a function of Source in this world. And you will never, ever accept that if you do not allow yourself to recognize that Source is on a learning track as well. The out-breath gains from the in-breath that gains from the out-breath that gains from the in-breath. You cannot forgive if you do not follow that pattern. Self, situation, Source. And when you have done that, only then are you capable of actually releasing that situation. Lack of forgiveness is going to pop up over the next few months until you're good at it. And if you're already good at it, then I'm going to encourage you to look for creative outlets, particularly for service. Because expressing your divine feminine is going to anchor an energetic spot for that flow to join this world. But just like pouring a liquid through a funnel into another container, if there are rocks in that funnel, then that liquid exchange is going to go slowly, and the end product is still going to be gritty. Be rid of those things that you are holding onto. I want to remind you of a story. You know this story. I've told it many, many times. It's been in your societies for 1,000 years. Many more than that, but that works. It's the story of that beggar who spent his day begging for rice. I just need enough rice to feed myself, please. This is a blind beggar For those of you who have visited the world, you probably can imagine this pretty easily. In many of the countries you have visited, for instance, that wild country of North Lexington. The beggar that is saying, help me, I just need enough rice for today, help me. And somebody walks up and says, I want to give you something, but you have to let go of what you have before I can give it to you. And the beggar is faced with a momentous decision. What should I do? I have worked so hard and so long to gather together these grains that I have. If I let them go, I may never have them again. This might be a horrible joke. You know how the universe loves to giggle. Dare I do it? The beggar doesn't know that the person who walked up wants to fill their hands with money. But the beggar will never, ever get it as long as he's protecting his grains. That means so much. At the expense of opening those hands for more. You hold on so tight, you have no room for an open heart, an open mind, an open life. Forgiveness is a way to open your hands. I let go of my fear, my need to collect, to hoard, to keep. I allow. I allow. May allow. June and July and August allow. Open hands to the divine feminine. Look in the mirror.